The distress signal pierced through the void of space, reaching the outer monitoring stations of Earth's defensive grid. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the helm of the orbital station Aegis 7, her weathered hands gripping the console as the message played for the third time. The alien transmission was weak, desperate, and unlike anything they had received before. "Play it again," she ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The communication officer, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, nodded and initiated the playback. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a creature that defied human understanding. It had 6 limbs, crystalline skin that seemed to shimmer with internal light, and eyes that held an intelligence both alien and familiar. When it spoke, the universal translator struggled with the emotional weight behind each word. "To any who receive this message, we beg for mercy. The Devourers come. They consume worlds, strip civilizations bare, and leave nothing but darkness in their wake. We are the Zalathi Collective, and we have heard whispers of the Deathworlders, those who thrive where others perish, who find strength in chaos. If you exist, if you truly are out there, we implore you, help us." The message cut off abruptly, replaced by static and the cold emptiness of space. Chen turned to her crew, reading the mixture of fear and determination on their faces. Earth had been alone in the cosmos for so long that first contact had become more myth than expectation. Now, not only had they received proof of alien life, but that life was crying out for help. "Get me a direct line to Fleet Command," Chen commanded. "Priority Alpha, and trace that signal's origin." Within hours, the entire Sol Defense Network buzzed with activity. Admiral James Morrison, a grizzled veteran who had spent 40 years preparing for threats that never came, found himself at the center of humanity's most critical moment. The war room aboard the flagship Prometheus, filled with Earth's finest military minds, scientists, and diplomats. The signal originated from the Kepler 442 system, approximately 1,200 light-years from Earth, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of xenobiology. Based on the degradation pattern, the message was sent 3 standard months ago. Morrison studied the star charts, his mind already calculating logistics and possibilities. 3 months. God knows what's happened to them since then. "Sir," interrupted Captain David Park, "we're picking up additional signals. Same general area, different species by the look of it. They're all asking for the same thing, help from the Deathworlders." The room fell silent. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone present. Humanity had always wondered about its place in the universe. Now they knew. They were the monsters that other monsters feared. "Why do they call us Deathworlders?" asked Ambassador Ruth Okonkwo, her diplomatic training keeping her voice neutral despite her curiosity. Dr. Vasquez pulled up a comparative analysis. "From what we can gather, Earth is what's classified as a Class 12 death world. High gravity, volatile weather patterns, aggressive fauna, tectonic instability, and a host of other factors that most spacefaring species consider lethal. The fact that we not only survived but thrived here makes us something of a legend." "A legend they're banking on," Morrison added grimly. "Show me everything we have on these Devourers." The holographic display shifted, showing fragments of data extracted from the various distress calls. The image that formed made even hardened soldiers shift uncomfortably. The Devourers were biomechanical nightmares, part machine, part organic horror. They moved in massive swarms, converting entire planets into resources for their ever-growing collective. "They're like locusts," whispered someone in the back. "Worse," Vasquez corrected. "Locusts leave something behind. These things break down matter at the molecular level. They don't just eat worlds, they unmake them." Morrison stood, his decision made. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've spent centuries preparing for the unknown. We've built fleets, trained warriors, and pushed the boundaries of technology, all while wondering if we were alone. Now we know we're not, and now we know why the universe whispers about Earth with fear and respect. He looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes. Those beings out there don't know us. They know stories, legends of the Deathworlders who conquered a planet that should have killed them. They're betting their survival on those stories being true. Are they? Captain Park asked. Are the stories true? Morrison smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. They don't know the half of it. Humanity didn't just survive Earth. We made it our playground. We've turned disasters into opportunities, predators into pets, and poisons into medicine. If these devourers want to test the children of Earth, they're about to learn why our world is classified as death incarnate. The Admiral turned to the tactical display. I want every available ship ready for jump in 72 hours. Recall all personnel from leave. Activate the reserve fleets, and get our best xenotech engineers working on adapting our weapons for maximum effectiveness against these things. Sir, Ambassador Okonkwo interjected. We don't even know if we can trust these aliens. This could be a trap. Maybe, Morrison conceded. But if it's real, if there are civilizations out there being systematically destroyed while they cry out for our help, what does it say about humanity if we don't answer? We've always wondered what our purpose was among the stars. Maybe this is it. Maybe we're the universe's emergency response team. As orders flew and preparations began, Chen watched from her station as Earth's mighty fleet began to mobilize. Massive dreadnoughts, sleek cruisers, and nimble fighters emerged from hidden moorings around the solar system. Each ship was a testament to human ingenuity and paranoia, built for a war they hoped would never come. Down on Earth's surface, the news spread like wildfire. Humanity's first contact with alien life wasn't a peaceful meeting of minds or a hostile invasion. It was a cry for help from beings who saw humans not as primitives or equals, but as something far more primal, survivors of the impossible, warriors born from a world that should have been their tomb. In the sprawling metropolis of New Shanghai, crowds gathered in the streets watching massive screens as President Maria Santos addressed the planet. My fellow humans, today marks a turning point in our species' history. We are not alone, and the universe needs us. It needs our strength, our courage, and our refusal to yield in the face of impossible odds. She paused, letting her words sink in across billions of minds. They call us Deathworlders because our home is hostile to life as they know it. But we know better. Earth isn't hostile, it's honest. It taught us that survival isn't given, it's earned. It showed us that strength comes from adversity, that unity comes from diversity, and that the impossible is just another challenge to overcome. Today, we answer the call, not as conquerors but as protectors, not as Deathworlders, but as humans, and we will show the universe what that truly means. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Scientists shared decades of research freely. Engineers worked around the clock to prepare the fleet. Even Earth's often fractious nations set aside their differences, united in a purpose greater than any territorial dispute. But it was in the military academies and training grounds where the real transformation occurred. Drill Sergeant Angela Torres stood before a group of fresh recruits, their faces a mixture of excitement and terror. "Listen up, meat!" she barked, falling into the familiar rhythm that had shaped soldiers for generations. You think you know what tough is? You think growing up on Earth makes you special? You're wrong. Earth made you capable of being special. Now we're going to make you worthy of the title Deathworlder. She paced before them, each step measured and purposeful. Out there, in the black, there are beings counting on legends, stories their ancestors whispered about the impossible creatures from the death world who refused to die. They don't need legends. They need soldiers. They need humans who understand that when the universe calls, Earth answers. "Sir! Yes, sir!" the recruits shouted in unison. As the days passed, Earth's fleet grew. Ships arrived from Mars, from the asteroid colonies, from the moons of Jupiter. Each vessel bore humanity's defiant spirit, armed with weapons forged from Earth's hostile understanding of survival, railguns that could punch through mountains, plasma weapons reverse-engineered from solar flares, and armor plating inspired by the creatures that survived Earth's most extreme environments. But perhaps the most powerful weapon humanity brought wasn't made of metal or energy. It was the collective will of a species that had faced extinction more times than they could count and had spit in death's face every single time. Captain Lisa Zhao stood on the bridge of her destroyer, the Resilient, watching Earth shrink in the viewports. Around her, hundreds of ships formed up in precise formations, ready to jump across the cosmos to answer a stranger's plea for help. "Captain," her navigation officer reported, "jump coordinates locked in. Fleet signals ready." Zhao nodded, thinking of her daughter back on Earth, of all the children who would grow up in a universe where humanity had chosen to be protectors rather than conquerors. "Send word to the Admiral. The Resilient stands ready." Across the fleet, similar confirmations echoed. Humanity's greatest armada, built from centuries of preparation and paranoia, stood poised to leap into the unknown. They weren't going as explorers or diplomats. They were going as what the universe had named them, Deathworlders, warriors from a planet that killed the weak and forged the strong. Admiral Morrison stood in the Prometheus's command center, watching the final preparations. The weight of species, both human and alien, rested on his shoulders. But he bore it as humans always had, with stubborn determination and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," his aide announced. Morrison took a deep breath, thinking of all the times humanity had stood on the brink. The ice ages that should have frozen them, the plagues that should have destroyed them, the wars that should have ended them. Each time, humans had not just survived, but grown stronger. "Open a channel to the fleet," he ordered. When the connection established, his voice carried across hundreds of ships, reaching thousands of souls ready to risk everything for strangers they'd never met. Men and women of Earth, children of the death world, today we write a new chapter in human history. We go not to conquer, but to save. Not to destroy, but to protect. We carry with us the strength of our world, the will of our people, and the hope of civilizations we've yet to meet. He paused, letting his words resonate through the fleet. They call us Deathworlders. Let's show them what that means. Let's show them that death worlds don't create monsters. They create guardians. All ships, prepare for jump on my mark. The fleet aligned, jump drives spinning up with barely contained energy. In moments, they would leap across the cosmos, carrying Earth's fury and compassion in equal measure. "Mark!" Space twisted, reality bent, and Earth's children raced toward their destiny among the stars. The human fleet erupted from hyperspace like predators breaking through water's surface, their arrival sending ripples through the fabric of space itself. Admiral Morrison gripped his command chair as the Prometheus's sensors flooded with data. What they found exceeded their worst expectations. The Kepler 442 system was dying. Where star charts showed 3 inhabited worlds, only devastation remained. The closest planet was being systematically consumed by a writhing mass of biomechanical horror. The Devourers moved across its surface like a living ocean of metal and flesh, breaking down everything they touched into base components. "Dear God," breathed Commander Chen from her position at the tactical station. "There must be billions of them." "Sensor sweep complete," reported Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka. "I'm detecting life signs on the second planet, but they're fading fast. The third planet, sir, I'm picking up a massive energy signature. It's like nothing in our database. Morrison studied the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities. That's where we make our stand. All ships combat formation Delta. Weapons free, but watch your targets. We're here to save lives, not add to the body count. As the fleet moved deeper into the system, they encountered their first refugees. A hodgepodge of alien vessels, held together by desperation and failing technology, limped toward them. The lead ship's hull bore scars from multiple encounters with the Devourers, its engine trail flickering like a dying heartbeat. "Admiral, they're transmitting," announced the communications officer. The view screen filled with an image that made the bridge crew pause. The alien, a Zalathi like the one from the original distress call, looked at them with eyes that held too much hope and fear. Its crystalline skin had lost its inner light, now dull and cracked from exhaustion. "Deathworlders," it whispered, the translator conveying awe and disbelief. "You came. We had begun to believe you were only stories, myths, to comfort the doomed." "We're real enough," Morrison replied, keeping his voice steady and strong. "I'm Admiral Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. We're here to help. What's your status?" The Zalathi's form flickered. Whether from emotion or failing technology, Morrison couldn't tell. "I am Luminarch Kriak of the Zalathi Collective. We have 17,000 souls aboard these vessels, all that remains of 3 worlds. The Devourers, they came 6 cycles ago. Nothing stops them. Weapons, barriers, pleas for mercy, all meaningless." "Not anymore," Morrison stated with the confidence that had carried humanity through impossible odds. "Transfer your wounded to our medical frigates. Our doctors will do what they can. Then I need you to share everything you know about these Devourers. Weaknesses, patterns, anything." Kriak's eyes widened, an unsettling sight given their multifaceted nature. "You speak as one who believes victory possible. Deathworlder, we have seen species far more advanced than yours fall before the swarm. What makes you think—" The Admiral's smile was sharp as a blade. "Because we're human, and humans specialize in killing things that can't be killed." As refugee ships docked with human medical vessels, the cultural shock was immediate and profound. Dr. Sarah Hawkins, chief medical officer aboard the hospital ship Mercy, found herself treating injuries that defied conventional understanding. The Zalathi bled light instead of blood. The Vreks, another refugee species, had redundant nervous systems that operated on frequencies human equipment could barely detect. But what struck her most wasn't the biological differences. It was the psychological trauma. These beings had watched their worlds die, had run from an unstoppable force, and had resigned themselves to extinction. The very concept of standing and fighting seemed alien to them. "Doctor," called nurse practitioner James Okafor, "you need to see this." Hawkins approached the bed where a young Zalathi, or what passed for young among their species, lay recovering. Unlike the adults, this one's crystalline skin still held traces of inner light, pulsing weakly but steadily. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "Hope," Okafor replied. "Watch what happens when I mention the humans are here to fight." He leaned toward the young alien. "The Deathworlders have brought warships. They're going to battle the Devourers." The effect was immediate. The inner light flared brighter, and the young Zalathi's eyes focused with sudden clarity. It spoke in halting tones, the translator working overtime. "Fight? Truly fight? Not run?" "That's right," Hawkins confirmed, her doctor's instincts recognizing the medicine this patient truly needed. "Humans don't run. We're going to stop them." The young Zalathi made a sound the translator couldn't interpret, but Hawkins recognized it anyway. It was the sound of someone remembering how to hope. Back on the Prometheus, Admiral Morrison convened with his senior staff and the alien representatives. The holographic display showed the Devourers' advance in real time, a cancer spreading across the system. "They reproduce exponentially," explained Vrixnu, a spider-like being whose species had been fighting a losing battle for cycles. "Destroy one, and its mass is absorbed by others. Energy weapons make them multiply faster. Kinetic weapons slow them but don't stop them. We've tried everything." Captain Park leaned forward. "What about their command structure? Nothing operates as a perfect swarm. There must be some form of coordination." The aliens exchanged looks that transcended species barriers. It was the look of those who had given up asking such questions. "We never found one," Kriak admitted. "They move as one mind, one purpose. Consume, grow, spread. That is all they are." "Then we make them be something else," Morrison declared. "Captain Zhao, I want you to take the Resilient and probe their outer formations. Don't engage fully, just enough to test reactions. Chief Walsh, what's the status on our special weapons packages?" The grizzled weapons officer grinned, an expression that made several aliens step back. "Ready and waiting, Admiral. The boys in R&D outdid themselves. Cryo-bombs based on Europa's ice geysers, nanite dispensers reverse-engineered from Earth's most aggressive bacteria, and my personal favorite, the Yellowstone charges." "Yellowstone?" Vrixnu asked, curiosity overcoming fear. "Supervolcanic munitions," Walsh explained with evident pride. "See, on Earth we live next to geological bombs that could end our civilization. So we figured, why not weaponize that concept?" The aliens stared in what the humans were beginning to recognize as horrified awe. These Deathworlders didn't just survive their hostile planet. They turned its dangers into weapons. Captain Zhao's voice crackled over comms. "Admiral, we're in position. Beginning probe run. Contact. They're responding to our presence. Sir, you need to see this." The tactical display zoomed in on the Resilient's position. The Devourers had noticed the human ship and were moving to intercept, but their movement was different from what the refugees had described. Instead of the seamless swarm tactics, there was hesitation, almost confusion. "They're adapting," Dr. Vasquez observed. "The Devourers have never encountered humans before. They're trying to figure out what we are." "Then let's educate them," Morrison ordered. "Zhao, light them up." The Resilient's weapons spoke with humanity's voice. Railguns fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Plasma cannons unleashed miniature stars. But it was the cryo-bombs that proved most effective. The weapons detonated among the Devourer swarm, flash-freezing vast sections. The frozen units shattered under their own movement, and for the first time, the advance slowed. "Admiral!" Tanaka shouted. "I'm detecting a change in the swarm behavior. They're pulling back from the engagement zone." The bridge fell silent. According to every report, the Devourers never retreated. They never hesitated. They only consumed. "Did we just make them blink?" Chen asked. Before anyone could answer, space itself seemed to convulse. The massive energy signature from the third planet spiked, and something emerged from the Devourer mass. It was huge, easily dwarfing the human dreadnoughts. Where the smaller Devourers were chaotic amalgamations of metal and flesh, this was purposeful, almost elegant in its horror. "Now that," Morrison said slowly, "looks like a command unit." The thing spoke, not with sound, but directly into their minds. Every human, every alien felt its presence like ice in their thoughts. "Deathworlders, we know of you. Your reputation spreads among the food. You are interesting." Morrison stood, facing the view screen as if the thing could see him. Perhaps it could. "I'm Admiral James Morrison of Earth. You're done here. Leave this system, leave these people alone, or we'll demonstrate why our world is classified as death incarnate." "Amusing. You threaten the inevitable. We are hunger given form. We are the end of all things. Your world's classification means nothing. You will be consumed like all others." "See, that's where you're wrong," Morrison replied, his voice carrying the weight of human history. "We've heard that before, from ice ages, from plagues, from our own stupid wars. Everything in the universe has tried to kill humanity at some point. You want to know what makes us Deathworlders? It's not that we're hard to kill. It's that we absolutely refuse to die." He turned to his crew. "All ships, execute Operation Prometheus. Show these things what humans do to inevitability." The human fleet moved with practiced precision. Ships that had seemed randomly positioned suddenly revealed their true formation. A three-dimensional trap centuries of war gaming had perfected. The Devourers found themselves caught between converging fields of fire, each weapon specifically chosen for maximum effectiveness. But it was the hospital ship Mercy that delivered the most unexpected blow. Dr. Hawkins had done more than treat the refugees. She'd studied them, learned how their technology interfaced with biological systems. Working with human xenotech specialists, they'd created something unprecedented. "Deploying symbiotic defense network," Hawkins announced over comms. Clouds of modified nanites, programmed with biological patterns from Earth's most adaptive organisms and integrated with alien tech, spread through space. When they encountered Devourers, they didn't destroy, they corrupted. The perfect unity of the swarm began to break down as individual units found themselves infected with something antithetical to their nature: individuality. The command unit's psychic scream echoed through every mind in the system. "Impossible. You corrupt our perfection. What are you?" "We're humans," Morrison answered. "We're the species that looked at a planet trying to kill us and said challenge accepted. We're the ones who turned predators into pets and poisons into medicine. We're the children of Earth, and you picked the wrong neighborhood to terrorize." The battle escalated. Devourers adapted to each weapon, only to face new horrors from humanity's arsenal. Gravitational mines that created localized black holes. Electromagnetic pulses tuned to disrupt their biomechanical harmony. And when the swarm tried to overwhelm through sheer numbers, they met humanity's ultimate weapon: pure, stubborn spite. The destroyer Indomitable, captained by Rosa Martinez, found itself surrounded. Her ship was damaged, shields failing, weapons nearly depleted. Any sensible species would have surrendered or fled. Martinez had different ideas. "All hands. This is the captain. We've got these bastards right where we want them. Engineering, override all safeties on the fusion core. Tactical, prepare for ramming speed." Her crew didn't hesitate. This was human warfare. When cornered, become more dangerous. "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "it's been an honor." "The honor's mine," Martinez replied. "Now let's show these things why Earth breeds warriors, not victims. All ahead full." The Indomitable became a spear of light and fury, punching through the Devourer swarm toward a concentration of command nodes. The explosion, when her overloaded core detonated, was visible across the system, taking millions of Devourers with her. But Martinez's sacrifice did more than destroy enemies. The refugees, watching from their ships, saw something they'd forgotten existed: defiance in the face of certain death. The humans didn't just fight the Devourers, they made war into an art form. On the hospital ship, the young Zalathi Hawkins had treated earlier pressed against a viewport, watching the battle with eyes bright with newfound understanding. It turned to an elder of its species, speaking in tones that rang with conviction. "They don't fight to survive, they fight to win. That's the difference, isn't it? We ran because we wanted to live. They fight because they refuse to lose." The elder touched the youngling with a tendril of light. "You speak wisdom, child. The Deathworlders teach us something we forgot in our fear. Sometimes the only way to survive is to stop trying to survive and start trying to triumph." As the battle raged, something unprecedented began to happen. The refugee ships, those battered vessels that had run for so long, began to move, not away from the battle, but toward it. Weapons that hadn't fired in cycles powered up. Shields meant only for running suddenly angled for combat. "Admiral," Kriak's voice came over comms, stronger than before. "The Zalathi Collective requests permission to join the battle. We have run long enough. If we die today, we die as warriors, not prey." Similar messages came from the other species. The humans hadn't just brought ships and weapons. They'd brought something far more dangerous to the Devourer's perfect order. They'd brought inspiration. Morrison felt a fierce pride as he watched the tactical display. "All Allied vessels, welcome to the fight. Form up on our flanks. Let's show these things what happens when the universe stands united." The Devourer command unit pulsed with rage and something else, uncertainty. For the first time in its existence, prey had become predators. The inevitable had met the impossible, and the impossible was winning. The United Fleet carved through space like a blade of determination, humans and aliens fighting side by side against the Devourer swarm. Admiral Morrison watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction as the enemy's perfect coordination continued to fracture. The infection of individuality spread through their ranks like wildfire, turning their greatest strength into a crippling weakness. "Admiral, the Zalathi ships are implementing our attack patterns," reported Commander Chen. Sir, they're actually improving on them." Morrison allowed himself a small smile. "That's what happens when you give people hope. They remember how to fight." The Devourer command unit pulsed with increasing desperation, its psychic emanations becoming more erratic. Where once it had spoken with absolute confidence, now there was something else bleeding through. Fear. "You corrupt us. You break the pattern. This is not possible." "Welcome to dealing with humans," Morrison broadcast back. "We specialize in the impossible. Captain Park, status on Operation Yellowstone?" "Charges are in position, Admiral. The geology boys say if we detonate in sequence, we can create a cascade reaction that'll make a supernova look like a firecracker." The plan was insane by any reasonable standard. They'd identified the Devourer's main processing nodes, massive structures where consumed matter was broken down and redistributed to grow new units. The human engineers proposed to turn these factories of death into bombs, using the Devourer's own converted energy against them. But it required someone to manually guide the charges into position, a suicide run that would make Martinez's sacrifice look cautious by comparison. "I'll do it," came a voice over comms. Not human, Vrixnu, the spider-like alien who had first briefed them on the Devourers. "My people have a saying. The web remembers every thread. Let my thread be remembered as the one that helped weave victory." Before anyone could object, Vrixnu's ship broke formation, diving toward the processing nodes. The small vessel danced between defensive fire with grace that 8 limbs and compound eyes provided, each movement precise and purposeful. "Cover that ship," Morrison ordered. "All units, maximum suppression fire." The human fleet responded with devastating force. The dreadnought Thunder Mountain lived up to its name, its main guns speaking with the voice of tectonic fury. Fighters swarmed around Vrixnu's ship, taking hits meant for the brave alien. The refugees fought with newfound ferocity, no longer running but standing their ground. Dr. Hawkins watched from the Mercy, her hands clenched as casualty reports flooded in. But something else came with those reports. Stories. A Zalathi pilot who sang war songs learned from human Marines. A Vrex engineer who jury-rigged weapons using principles from human survival guides. The cultural exchange was happening in real time, forged in the crucible of battle. "Doctor, you need to see this," called her assistant, pointing to a monitor showing biological readings from the battle zone. The Devourers were changing but not adapting. They were breaking down. The introduction of individuality hadn't just disrupted their coordination. It had started a chain reaction. Units began to question their purpose, to act on self-preservation rather than hive benefit. The perfect organism was destroying itself with the very concept of self. "It's like an autoimmune disease," Hawkins breathed. "They're rejecting their own nature." On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Morrison received confirmation. "Vrixnu is in position, charges armed and ready." "All ships, prepare for stellar event," Morrison commanded. "Vrixnu, you have the honor." The alien's voice came through, steady despite everything. "Humans taught us something today. You showed us that running from death gives it power over you. Face it, defy it, and sometimes you win." A pause, then with what might have been humor. "See you on the other side, Deathworlders." The explosion began at the processing nodes and spread like divine judgment. The Yellowstone charges didn't just detonate, they created a cascading reaction that turned the Devourer's own consumed matter into a weapon against them. Space itself seemed to scream as reality twisted around the blast. The Devourer Command Unit's final psychic cry echoed through every mind. "This cannot be! We are eternal! We are hunger! We are—" And then silence. Beautiful, blessed silence, where billions of Devourers had swarmed. Only expanding clouds of elementary particles remained. The threat that had consumed worlds, that had been called unstoppable, was gone. Not defeated, erased. The Allied fleet hung in space, battered but victorious. Then, starting with one human ship and spreading through the entire formation, cheers erupted. Humans and aliens alike celebrated not just survival, but triumph. They had faced the impossible and made it submit. "Admiral!" Kriak's image appeared on screen, the Zalathi's crystalline form blazing with renewed inner light. We won! The Devourers are gone!" "No," Morrison corrected gently. "We won. Together. This victory belongs to all of us." In the days that followed, as ships were repaired and wounds tended, something remarkable happened. The various alien species didn't simply thank humanity and leave. They stayed, eager to learn from the Deathworlders who had showed them how to fight back against the dark. The hospital ship Mercy became a cultural exchange center. Dr. Hawkins found herself not just treating patients but facilitating discussions on survival philosophy. The aliens were fascinated by human concepts, how they turned weaknesses into strengths, obstacles into opportunities. "You domesticated wolves?" a young Vrex asked in disbelief during one such session. "Predators that could kill you, and you made them companions?" Marine Sergeant Lisa Wong grinned. "That's nothing. We've got people who keep venomous snakes as pets. There's this guy in Australia who makes friends with crocodiles. Hell, we turned bacteria, things that killed millions of us, into medicine." The alien's multiple eyes widened. "Your world tries to kill you, and you befriend the killers." "Sometimes," Wong shrugged. "Other times we eat them. Depends on how they taste." This led to a discussion on human cuisine that left several aliens questioning their new allies' sanity. The concept of intentionally eating things that were poisonous, from fugu to cassava, seemed to break something in the aliens' understanding of survival. But it wasn't just human madness that spread through the fleet. The aliens shared their own strengths. The Zalathi's harmonic technology merged beautifully with human engineering. The Virex's multidimensional thinking solved problems human minds couldn't grasp. Each species brought something unique to the table. 3 weeks after the battle, Admiral Morrison convened a meeting that would reshape the galaxy. Representatives from every surviving species gathered aboard the Prometheus. The conference room expanded to accommodate various environmental needs. "The Devourers are gone," Morrison began, "but they won't be the last threat. The universe is vast and full of dangers we can't imagine. Today, I propose something unprecedented, a permanent alliance, not just for war, but for exploration, growth, and mutual protection." Kriak spoke for the Zalathi. You saved us when you had no obligation to do so. You taught us strength we had forgotten. The Zalathi Collective stands with Earth. One by one, the other species voiced their agreement. The Vrex, the Calorians, the Threnodi, all pledged themselves to this new alliance. But it was the youngest Zalathi, the one Dr. Hawkins had first treated, who provided the moment that defined the future. The young being stood, its light pulsing with nervous energy. I propose a name for our alliance. In our darkest hour, we called out for the Deathworlders, and they answered. But you're not bringers of death, you're defiers of it. I propose we call ourselves the Defiance Coalition, because that's what you taught us, to defy the impossible, to stand when everything says we should fall. The name was adopted unanimously. As the fleet prepared to return to Earth, bringing with them new allies and technologies, Captain Zhao stood on her bridge, looking at the stars. Her first officer approached, noting her contemplative mood. Thinking about home, Captain? Thinking about the future, she replied. For so long, we wondered if we were alone. We built weapons, prepared for war, always expecting the worst. And when we finally met other life, they didn't fear us for our weapons. They hoped for us because of what we are. Deathworlders, the officer said with a slight smile. No, Zhao shook her head. Humans, just humans who refuse to give up. That's all we've ever been, and it turns out that's exactly what the universe needed. The journey back to Earth became a rolling celebration. Human ships shared music, food, carefully selected for biological compatibility, and stories. The aliens reciprocated with their own cultural treasures. By the time the fleet reached Sol's system, they weren't just allies, they were becoming friends. Earth's response to the returning fleet was electric. Humanity had left to answer a cry for help and returned as part of something greater. The planet that had spent so long preparing for hostile first contact instead found itself at the center of a galactic community built on mutual respect and shared sacrifice. President Santos greeted the Allied representatives in the United Nations building, now expanded to accommodate non-human dignitaries. Her speech was broadcast across Earth and transmitted to the Allies' homeworlds. When we received that first distress signal, we faced a choice, she began. We could have stayed safe, protected by the vast distances between stars. We could have let fear keep us isolated. Instead, we chose to be what humanity has always been at its best. Helpers, protectors, those who run toward danger when others need us. She gestured to the alien representatives. These beings called us Deathworlders, expecting warriors from a hostile world. They found something else. Friends from a world that taught us strength comes from facing adversity together. Today marks not just an alliance but a promise. Earth stands ready, not as conquerors of the galaxy, but as guardians of those who need us. The integration wasn't without challenges. Humans had to adjust to being part of a larger community. Some industries worried about alien technology making them obsolete. Others feared cultural contamination. But for every voice of concern, a dozen rose in excitement about the possibilities. The military academies updated their curricula, incorporating lessons from the battle. Sergeant Torres, who had trained those first recruits, now found herself teaching mixed classes of humans and aliens. "Listen up!" she barked at a group that included a young Vrex trying to figure out how to hold a human rifle with multiple limbs. The Devourers taught us something important. The greatest threat to the galaxy isn't any specific enemy. It's the idea that anything is unstoppable. Your job is to make sure the next big threat learns the same lesson they did. "What lesson is that, Sergeant?" asked a Zalathi recruit, its form flickering with curiosity. Torres grinned, the expression making several aliens step back. That picking a fight with the Defiance Coalition is the last mistake they'll ever make. In space, the first joint exploration vessels launched, crewed by mixed species teams. The ENS Horizon's End carried human determination, Zalathi innovation, Vrex intuition, and more out into the unknown. Their mission was simple in concept, vast in scope: find others who might need help, discover new wonders, and ensure that never again would a cry for help go unanswered. Captain Michael Chen, grandson of Commander Sarah Chen, who had received that first distress signal, stood on the Horizon's End's bridge. His crew represented 7 different species, all working in harmony that would have been unthinkable months before. "Captain," his Zalathi navigator announced, "we're detecting an unusual signal from Sector 779. It appears to be a distress call." Chen felt the weight of history and the lightness of purpose. "Then let's go see who needs help. All stations, prepare for course correction. Time to show the galaxy what the Defiance Coalition stands for." As the ship changed course, racing toward another soul in need, Earth's influence spread not through conquest, but through example. The Deathworlders had become something more: teachers, protectors, friends. They'd shown the galaxy that strength wasn't about being unkillable. It was about refusing to let anything, fear, overwhelming odds, or certain death, stop you from doing what's right. The name stuck, of course. Throughout the galaxy, Deathworlders became synonymous not with fear, but with hope. When darkness gathered, when impossible odds loomed, when all seemed lost, the cry would go out: "Call the Deathworlders." And Earth would answer, always, because that's what humans did. They survived the impossible, befriended the lethal, and turned certain death into just another problem to solve. They were the children of a world that tried to kill them every day, and they'd learned the only response that mattered: try harder. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and terrors yet undiscovered. But it was no longer quite as dark. The Deathworlders were on patrol, and they'd brought something more powerful than any weapon. They'd brought hope. And in the depths of space, where new threats stirred and ancient evils waited, that hope spread like fire. Species that had hidden in fear began to emerge. Civilizations that had accepted defeat started to fight back. The example of Earth, the little death world that could, inspired courage across the cosmos. The Defiance Coalition grew, not through force, but through proof that together, nothing was impossible. Each new member brought their own strengths, their own perspectives, their own refusal to surrender. And at the heart of it all was Earth, the planet that death itself couldn't conquer, sharing the greatest lesson it had learned. The only way to truly lose is to stop fighting. So they didn't stop. They never would, because they were human. And humans were forever.